Alrighty, please be seated. So I have a question for all of you. If you want to make something known, how do you do it? You announce it? What was that, Paul? Make a presence, yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? How do you make something known? You tell people. Social media, yeah, that's especially in our world, that is usually how we make things known. Yeah. Any other ways? When something is made known to us, how do we hear that news? A lot of the same ways. Maybe someone tells us. We might see it on social media. See it published, yeah, like in a newspaper or a magazine or a book, or we don't really do pamphlets anymore, but that was a thing at one point in time. Billboards, yeah. Because we have a lot of ways in our time to make something known and to share and receive news. But back in the first century, when Jesus was born, they were a lot more limited on how things could be made known. Certainly, they would make things known by telling someone. They did not have Facebook or the internet, which might be for their betterment. There was no printing press. It would be another 1,500 years before there was a printing press. So there weren't newspapers. People did write letters, which is how we have a lot of Paul's writings and other people's writings that are preserved for us of, writing these letters. And I was thinking this morning, how did they even send them? Because I guess the Romans had some kind of a postal service, but that would also work differently. And then people would write things down, like we have the writers of our 4 Gospels were writing the story of Jesus to make that story known of who Jesus was. And there were people who watched for signs back in those days, and we still do that today. But especially in the Persian culture, where our magi likely came from, there was, they would watch stars, they'd pay attention to dreams. Dreams are important in Matthew's gospel because Joseph receives a dream where an angel comes to him and says, don't send Mary away because she's pregnant. You should keep her around. And then we have these magi, they also receive a message in a dream during their visit. But they followed a star for something to be known to them. And I find it interesting that in their following the star, they were led to 2 different kinds of kings. We have, first they meet King Herod, who was that earthly kind of king, that king of the usual system, the usual human system that we have. That king who, once he got power, his main goal was to keep power. And that is often how our rulers behave even today. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to keep my power. And when King Herod is troubled, when his power is threatened, and this happens later in the next few paragraphs in Matthew's gospel, King Herod is threatened by this new king and orders all of the children under 2 in Bethlehem to be killed. So King Herod is responding to this threat, responding of being troubled by cruelty and violence. Reminds me a little bit of the line from Hamilton where King George III says, "And I will kill your friends and family to remind you of my love." That, we're going to just do whatever means necessary to keep power. And we still see this happening. And in fact, we see this happening even in Bethlehem today. We see truly horrible things that have happened in Israel because we have two sides that can't see the humanity in each other and are fighting and killing people to make a point of their being right and to keep land and to keep power. And they're not listening to each other, and they're not abiding by love. And there's been some really awful things that have happened because of that way of trying to cling to power. But luckily, the Magi didn't just stop with Herod. They went on to see the new kind of king. The king that at that point was probably a 2-year-old. Think a 2-year-old walking around with chubby cheeks. Born outside the center of power, outside of the capital city. Born to people from kind of a backcountry town that we're told have some connections through genealogy to royalty. But we know that they're living up in Nazareth, where I think someone said something once about nothing good comes from Nazareth. So this is a king that's, we already from his circumstances know is a little bit different. And this new king has a new way of being, a new way of having power, which is the way of love. And we know this by what Jesus does. When Jesus is troubled, when his friend Lazarus died, for example, Jesus wept. And then he raised Lazarus from the dead for love. When Jesus realized that his friend and disciple was going to be the one who would betray him, Jesus was troubled, and he spent his time comforting his other friends. When it became clear that the authorities had a plot to kill Jesus, Jesus could have started a revolt, could have done a lot of things to avoid that. But Jesus realized that there was maybe a bigger picture here and a bigger plan at place. And Jesus gave himself to be crucified so that we would know that death is not the end of the story, violence is not the end of the story, that love is the end of the story. The word epiphany means to be made known. So we've talked about the things that are being made known in this story, not just the story of the baby Jesus and the story of the Magi, but of the whole story of Jesus. God is making known to us that there is a new way to be in the world. That there is the way of love for ourselves, God's love for us, and love of other people, love of our neighbor, our fellow humans. That there's a way of connection, and that's the way of self-emptying love that doesn't hinge on pride and ego, but hinges on love and love for other people. It's a new year. And in this new year, it's often a time that we kind of reflect. What is it that we might be called to this year? What might we be led to this year? What goals might we have for the year? And I invite you this week to really take some time to reflect, some time to listen and look. Look for that star, whatever that star is in your life. Where is the star leading you into a new way? Maybe that star is leading you to get more into pastoral care here at Grace, of caring for each other. Maybe that star is leading you to think about a new outreach ministry to continue the work of reaching out into our neighbors. Maybe that star is saying, hey, you should join the Altar Guild and help to take care of the sacraments that we have every week. Maybe your star is telling you to take a break this year and to rest, because rest is also a way that God's love is made known to us. But take some time and think about, where is God calling you in 2025? And then the next question is, how are you being called to make God's love known into the world? Because we often make things known by our actions, by what we do, how we love each other, how we show that we know that we are loved by God. So as we go forward from worship, also think about how you will make God's love through Jesus Christ known in the world.